Well, a very good afternoon and welcome back to Falun and the World Nordic Championships. Day one qualifying for the cross-country skiers, and a big day for those minor nations looking for just 10 places in the endurance events, the longer events on the men's programme. They have to achieve the required FIS points as well as finishing in the top 10. And we've got a field of 69 lined up for the 10 kilometres. David Goldstrom, Mike Dixon, your commentators in the commentary booth, ready to go on this one. We're going to get a chance to chat to Per Elofsson, who is one of the legends from yesteryear in Swedish cross-country skiing. Of course, the man who featured in the 2002 Olympic Games, never quite fulfilled his potential, but had huge respect throughout the skiing world. And he's on hand right the way throughout these championships to give us insight into what the athletes are going through, how the crowd are feeling, what the crowd are expecting. Of course, there will be thousands upon thousands when the medal events start. And I suspect there'll be just as many Norwegians as there will be Swedes. Anyway, Robert Vacchi having a chat with Per Elofsson. So he says the World Championships have hardly started and we've already got news from the Swedish camp. Emil Jonsson is out with an injury. Per saying this is really sad. One of the biggest favourites in the Swedish team. He's had to withdraw and it's bad news for the whole team. We met Emil Jonsson in the press conference shortly after he heard the news. Here he is. He says it's been a long journey. Every race he's been in this year, or for many years, he's been thinking about these World Championships, the opportunity to race on home soil. He said he wanted the opportunity to show the fans what he could do. He says everything's been pretty good this season. He felt coming up to the championships that he's been getting better and better. He's been feeling calm. Everything's felt just how it should have done. Well, that was Emil Jonsson in the last World Cup race in Östersund. Did himself some damage. At first, the spectators thought it was the skis or the bindings that were having problems, but it was soon revealed that it was an injury to his thigh that was the problem.
Nej, det var givetvis en kamp mot klockan och
man såg ganska exactly, it was a race against the clock. You could see right away that it was a pretty serious injury. His thigh wrapped up immediately, and he's not made a decision until today simply because he wanted to give himself every chance of competing in these championships. Asking Per whether he thought instantly whether it was going to be impossible for Jonsson to get back into action. Says Emil said at the press conference that he'd had some pretty good development over the last couple of days, but he was still hoping to start a race, but he now knows that that is futile. Still, Robert says he's in pretty good mood considering. Per saying he doesn't think it's really sunk in yet. He thinks he's been in a little capsule for the last couple of days. Has Per ever had an injury like this? He says no. If he's had one at the start of the season, he's always managed to get back into racing shape by the end of the season. This is massively disappointing for Jonsson, and Per hoping that he can bounce back. Well, the championships continue and the sprints are coming up, and even without Emil Jonsson, it's going to be an exciting event. Absolutely. There are a lot of skiers that will be fighting for the medals. We have both men and women in the Swedish team that could feature in the podium positions. The Norwegians, of course, will be strong. There'll be some fantastic racing. Well, we look forward to that. And, of course, the medal events start tomorrow. Well, it's time for the athletes in this qualification race just to get themselves ready. All sorts of nations that you may not have seen before. Venezuela, we've got Ireland, Chile, Libya, Mexico, Moldova. And they are all looking for just 10 slots in the medal event. And that's starting in just over 5 minutes' time. Falun, the host city for this year's Nordic World Championships, and we're just going through the warm-up phases, the qualification races. Those who haven't yet achieved the FIS points available. No British competitors involved in this one today. Andrew Musgrave, of course, well qualified. Andrew Young likewise, and Andrew Musgrave's sister Posey also racing throughout these championships. We have Abu Musa from Lebanon, who's the Lebanese team leader, and we had a chance to catch up.
It's the first time for Lebanon to be in the cross country?
Yes, this is our first time, and I mean, our guys have been training for less than a year, and we hope that it's going to be the start for a very long period in the cross country.
How do you like it so far here in Falun?
Well, I mean, the conditions were better in the first 2 days. The snow is okay, but I mean, overall the people are very nice. But for us, as it's the first time in a cross country, you know, I cannot really tell you the difference between here and other places. But conditions are okay.
So first of all, you're here to collect experience.
Yes, definitely. Yes, because we are trying to build a good team for, you know, the Olympic Games to come. We usually participate in alpine skiing. Now we're going to participate in both, in cross country and alpine.
Good luck for that. Thank you very much, Abusat.
Thank you very much.
Well, we wish them well and hope they can manage to get through in the top 10 today. So that's just about it. Another aerial view of the stadium here in Falun. Let's have a look at the track. And in fact, time now to hand over to our commentators, David Goldstrom and Mike Dixon, for the men's 10 kilometre.
Thanks very much, Patrick. And we're just about 5 minutes away from the start of this race. The sky is still heavy and overcast. The temperature is warm. And with more of the details of the race ahead when we come back after this. Once again, a very good afternoon and welcome to Falun, day one of the 2015 Nordic Ski World Championships. Mike Dixon alongside myself, David Goldstrom, and as you can see, it's a pretty warm afternoon here. It's a bit sort of dank, I think is the adjective I'd use. But Mike, it's a big start list here, 69 competitors, 28 nations from literally all around the world, looking for just 10 slots. And if they want to compete in next week's 15-kilometre race, they have to also be within 140 points of the FIS points threshold if they want to race in races like the skiathlon and the 50-kilometre race at the end of the week.
Well, that's right, David, and there are going to be 59 disappointed athletes here. In the old days, all of these athletes would be included in the 15-kilometre, and which created a bit of a traffic jam, because quite honestly, a lot of 59 who will not qualify. It's quite a low standard, but they're here to learn, absorb and raise their game, and it will let them know what improvements they need to make. Training plans will be adjusted, and I still think it's a great thing that all these athletes are invited to take part, with just 10 making it through to qualify into the major championships.
Yes, and a few minutes ago you heard the coach of the Lebanese team explaining that this is really an entree for them into the sport of cross-country skiing as they look forward to the 2018 Olympics in Pyeongchang in South Korea. And so that is an interesting target for them to have. It'll be interesting to see how their athletes in this qualification race fare. You're looking there at Sergei Televitsky from Kyrgyzstan. He'll be the first man away. Now it's 10 kilometers, twice round the 5-kilometer loop here. And this, it doesn't matter what race you are involved in here, these are tough tracks, Mike.
They really are, and total climb over their 10-kilometer journey, David, 364 meters climb, and you know, a lot of that climbing, almost 100 meters in the first 1.6 kilometers from the start line, so it's a very abrupt and aggressive start, and I think more so than in any World Cups we've seen this season. So a big test for these athletes, and it will be interesting to see the standard. We're going to see some good racers, we're going to see some at quite a poor level, but here to improve.
Well, nothing to do with this race as we have a couple of minutes off, but an interesting thing, I know that you and Patrick were over at Oslo for the biathlon over the past weekend, and managed on your spare time off to put in 100 kilometres. Well, I'm sorry, Mike, that's just really not good enough, because there's going to be a 24-hour world record attempt coming up in Åre. And this is round a 1 kilometre loop on the Åre Lake on the 27th and 28th of March. And I think I'm going to enter you two.
Well, hey, I'll tell you what, in 24 hours, you're going to... We'll be looking at what, 250, 300 kilometres. David, you've got to do it as well.
So if you've just joined us, once again, a very good afternoon. Mike Dixon, together with myself, David Goldstrom. We're just about to get underway with the men's 10-kilometre freestyle skating qualification race for racers from all about the world. And they're looking to be in the top 10. If they make it into the top 10, they will be allowed to race next week in the men's 15-kilometre freestyle race against the likes of Petter Northug and Dario Colonia and the stars of cross-country skiing. These men, they have their own personal targets as well. Some will realise that maybe reaching the top 10 is beyond them, and this is a stepping stone over the coming seasons as the first man gets away, Trelevitsky of Kyrgyzstan.
Well, Trelevitsky, his timing, we will see some sharper timing, but he started quite aggressively. This is the only flat section in the whole part of the course, the 5 kilometre. They go round the 5 kilometre twice. And as mentioned earlier, 364 metres in total they will climb.
Absolutely right, Mike, because after the first 100 metres, you're already climbing. It's a shallow climb initially, but then it becomes quite demanding. And this is Cesar Baena for Venezuela. He's actually the team manager of the team. That's bib number 2 there. And following him out of the gate very shortly will be the first of the Moldovans. 5, waiting his turn, Juan Agurto from Chile. So one of the men who's had arguably the longest journey, along with the Aussies, to come here to Fallon. Although a number of these men are actually based over in Europe, and therefore, although they are from the countries that they represent and the flags that they wear on their race suits, they are in fact more familiar with snow than you might imagine.
Well, there's not much snow down in Cork in Ireland, and Rory Murrish, we've seen him. I remember in Oslo he was living out in a tent for the early days of the competitions there.
Yeah, he competed in the Oslo World Championships, and as you say, he's been living in Oslo. He's been involved in the sport really from 2003, which was the World Championships in Val di Fiemme, right up to Oslo. Making his way out of the stadium here. This will be a long journey for him, I think.
It will, and this is his fifth World Championship, so he's well experienced, and let's hope that it goes well today for Rory.
Agurto away for Chile was just outside the top 20 in one of those recent Balkan Cup competitions in Serbia, and I would think probably is going to struggle to get into the top 10 here. Really difficult when you go out early, because even in this race, the pace setters will have their splits analysed by the various coaches, and therefore it is a disadvantage to go early. 7 lining up here. This is Sarkis Drebi, and he's 24, and he comes from the Lebanese army. So this is one of the men we mentioned a few moments ago, the Lebanese getting involved really for the first time in cross-country sport. So hopefully he's going to have a good introduction and a good journey. Well, so you can see he really is a novice, but you have to start somewhere.
You have, and well, he's fighting hard. And I'll tell you what, this is going to be an incredibly tough 10-kilometre journey for him, and well, big respect. I take my hat off to him to be taking part in this event. And some of the technical corners out there, David, they're fast. You're hitting these corners at 50 kilometres an hour, and it's going to be a big test there for our Lebanese athlete.
Yeah, and this is also raises another topic, doesn't it? We were talking about the top woman racer, Justina Kowalczyk, and her training, because she's always put a lot of work in terms of strength training. But what has really let her down this season has been technique, and it's really important that even some of these Lebanese racers coming into this for the first time master the technique first and then build from there. Don't get into bad habits.
And that's it. If you build bad habits in training and racing, now these are very good habits in place. The glide's good, the timing is good there for our athlete from Moldova, but you have to build these movements and the efficient movements in at a young age generally, so that you can be efficient over this 10 kilometers.
This is Mansour Bazouni, also supported by the Lebanese army, and of course it's a part of the world which we all hope will find a way much sooner than later to live peacefully. But my goodness, in a sense, this must be something special for him to be in this part of the world, because cross-country skiing, well, it's a sport in this part of the world that you can take back to biblical times.
It is, and always in the way of hunting and travelling up here, and it's such a wonderful feeling when you're out on your skis across the country, through the forest, across the countryside. It's a lovely feeling when you're out on these skis.
I mean, people talk about this sport, actually, as you say, for moving around, even for tax collection as it was used in feudal times, but you can go back, what, 5-6 millennia and find records of people in this part of the world, particularly the Sami population in the north of Norway and Sweden.
When you've got a metre of snow, yeah, you can walk distances, but when you've got a piece of wood or now carbon fibre and Ptex, it's a much easier way of travelling over the surface of snow.
Fabrizio Bourguignon, member of the Brazilian national team, on his way, and we'll get an idea of progress at about 1.3 kilometers, and a couple of men who haven't started the race. No reason for that. Dominic McLennan of Ireland has not started, and neither has Victor Pinzaro. And I can tell you that the fastest man up the first 1.3 now is Liviu Dubalari in 4:55.1, but that time will progressively come down.
4:55. The sprint races tomorrow, David, and the slower technique, the classic technique, at 1.3 we'll be looking at sub 3 minutes. Good to see Torsten Langer, biathlete in his time and many times world championships racer. 44-year-old now. You can see his good and efficient technique and movement on the skis. Good force there through the arms, and the arms flying behind him. Now they're shorter striding as he's coming into the first part of the climbs.
Bosnia-Herzegovina, they've already got their tails up thanks to the performance of Tanja Karisic in the women's 5-kilometer qualification race. She was, of course, the runner-up to Qi Xunshui of China, who put in a really eye-catching performance, I thought, finishing the qualification race in 13:33.8 and qualifying not only for next week's 10-kilometer medal race, but for all the distance races as well. So she can go in the skiathlon on Saturday, she can go in the 30-kilometer distance race right at the end of the championships for the women.
And all that work, all that preparation, David, over the last 2 years, she said she wanted to qualify and get that opportunity, and it's worked. Kosaric from Bosnia-Herzegovina, just ahead of this athlete. He looks very good, ranked lower down, but he may well get his top 10 and qualify in this race.
Now the man you're looking at there has been in action in the Balkan Club over the past weekend in Serbia, and 2 races, one over 5 kilometers. He finished 8th there, and in the 10-kilometer freestyle race, 14th today's distance. Feast points of 190.3, which would suggest that he's got to find a bit here if he really wants to get into the top 10.
Very much. I mean, 190, it's good FIS points, so it's a good standard of racing, but it needs to lift the game a little.
here's another man. He was also in that race from Montenegro. But not so, fortunately. He was a long way down. He was outside the top 30 in both of those races, and recently in January finished outside the top 30 in the Nationals. But really good. Montenegro, another young, developing sports country.
And you mentioned the Balkan Cup. I think there are so many small regional cups, so the Alpine Cup, the Slavic Cup, the Asian Cup, the Eastern European Cup, so it gives many nations an opportunity to build.
Representing Canada, and this is a man who's been in action in the NORAMs and 15-kilometer freestyle. Trinidad and Tobago, the country that he's representing. And now we get out into the country a little bit here. And as I said, there's Dubalari, and he's coming up to 2.8 kilometers. He's still the leader at 1.3 at this particular stage of the competition.
Great job. There's good power there, David, through the arms, through the legs, gliding efficiently on each movement through the skis. This is a good performance.
And if you don't see too many spectators today, don't worry about that. Don't get disheartened. They've sold over 160,000 tickets here, and these stadiums and the trails will be absolutely packed with knowledgeable enthusiasts. So Dubalari's making the pace, 2.8 kilometers, so approximately halfway, a little bit more than halfway round the first of his two loops.
Well, we saw him grimacing there, David. He's carried speed, good speed over that. He said, I'm not sure his time will be good enough to make the top 10.
And there's those little spots of rain on the lens of our host broadcaster's cameras, which tells its own story. Rain in the air, and that was forecast for a little later today. And 22 about to start his run here. This is Kuldeep Dimri from India. But as I said, 69 to start. Plenty when we come back. Well, zooming out of the start gate there for Mongolia, and that's terrific to see. I mean, I hope he manages his energy carefully, but that is a really dynamic start from the Mongolian, and I have to say that really is impressive from Mr. Batmunk, who is in the army team of the Ski Federation. Now, things have changed a little bit earlier on. Torsten Lange, you were talking about him. He now represents Belgium, and you were saying that you remember him being in the World Championships in '99 in Ramsau.
He was, yeah. I think this is his 6th time out of World Championships in the cross country. He's raced many times in World Cup biathlon and World Championships biathlon, so a very experienced athlete, now age 44.
Yeah, he's the fastest man in the first 1,300 meter of this race, and he's actually running 10 seconds faster than Dubalari did at that particular point. But Dubalari at the moment, as you can see there, still at 2.8 kilometers, the fastest man on the track.
And you can see looking way into the distance, it is quite a climb on this section, but believe it or not, it is one of the easier sections. We'll see all these sections, all these tracks, most of the time in the races to come. Tomorrow, 1.4 kilometers will not come out onto this section. It's going to be a great race tomorrow, David, the sprint races.
Yeah, that's when these championships are really going to open up, and also the women's ski jumping qualification happens tomorrow as well. And Sara Takanashi of Japan, who's really found her form in the last 3 competitions. Mum and dad here watching her today in final training before the qualification. Jean-Luc Grégoire for Belgium on his way.
Well, this is good. This is a very good performance from a young athlete, 19-year-old. And that's an aggressive attack out from the start line, but it's 10 kilometers journey.
Yeah, haven't seen much of him this year, but he was pretty active last year. As you say, he's young. He's really been racing amongst the junior ranks, particularly in Austria at Hochfilzen, which you know very well from your biathlon days. And here's Lange. Now, remember, he was 10 seconds up on Dubellari at the 1.3 kilometre point. So you can see he's really built some advantage. Still has a little way to go to the timing line.
Good effort here from Torsten. He's using his years of experience making those moves as efficient as possible. There's Rory just ahead, Rory Moorish from Ireland just ahead of him.
And this is what you can see here, this fluency. You can see those skis not really coming too high off the snow. Contact is important, and he's built another 9 seconds advantage over the Moldovan, who really started the race as our pathfinder.
Well, the body. After 2.8 kilometres, you've set your pace. You've gone through your start. The initial nervous part of the race is now behind you, and now it comes down into the aggressive and hard-working endurance.
You saw that wide shot of the stadium complex here. It really has changed since last year. The finish was on the other side. In other words, it was to this man's right. Now it's to his left, and it does really look quite familiar to the Holmenkollen in Oslo, but it's even more compact. But the actual run down into the stadium off the terrace and the uphill across the little bridge, very similar and familiar features. And tomorrow, I'm sure this is going to be packed out, and because it's so close here, the noise is going to be tremendous from the spectators. So Langer through ahead of Dubellari, still in second place. In third at 2.8 kilometres, the Moldovan Okancia, and then Kozarak of Bosnia-Herzegovina, but 49 seconds separating the first four through that checkpoint at 2.8 kilometres.
Dubellari has already gone through the stadium now. That's a good time, 13.17 for his first 5 kilometres. Hopefully he can maintain that push. That'll be sub 27 minute 10 kilometre. Won't be the fastest.
Yeah, and Juan Agurto of Chile actually has done pretty well. He's only dropped another couple of seconds. He was 68 seconds behind. He's now 71 seconds behind, but that's not too bad by him.
Not bad. New leader, David, well, 1.3. Bat Monk, you mentioned, and he raced well actually at the Universiade recently. He took part in every race, and the young athlete, he got more and more tired as each race went on, but this is a great start from the Mongolian.
Yeah, and I think those Universiade races are very timely because it gives you the opportunity to really find out where you are, because it's a barometer test as much as anything else for these World Championships, and you've got someone you can relate to in terms of racing, and I think that stood him in good stead. And he certainly set out with a real purpose. The slight worry could be that you actually use just that little bit too much energy on the first 5 kilometre loop.
Well, he did certainly attack, and his teammate here, Bold, again another athlete at the Universiade and a very good racer as well. Look at that, the lean forward, as much compression through the legs, raising quite high through the heels on return.
So Mike, again, let's have a word as we see this man Dubellari. Of course, he's now come out of the stadium having completed 5, and he's on that initial 1.3 climb again. But as we see him coming up here, let's just talk about the equipment. This is a skating race as opposed to a classic race, which we're going to see tomorrow. So perhaps for one or two people who are not familiar with the different types of equipment, take us through that.
Yes, well, the skating, the freestyle as we have here today, ski is a more rigid ski, David, and it's a shorter ski. It's in relation to your own height, and you can actually, very tall athletes are now using the ski which is their own length. For example, if you're 1.95 meters, you'll be using almost a 190 ski. For the shorter athletes, it'll be 10 or 15 centimeters longer. It's a rigid ski, and the poles, in relation to the classic technique, which we'll see tomorrow in the sprint races, the poles in the freestyle are about 15 centimeters higher. So you can get more lean forward, more compression as you skate out to the side through your arms.
And Dubellari setting all the early marks at the moment, but just continuing with that theme. Here we've got a pretty warm afternoon. The rain has come down. There's moisture around. So now you have to start thinking about the ski and its structure, because there are a variety of structures as there are a variety of waxes.
So many structures, and there are many experts out there. Stone grinding machines puts the imprint of the structures on your ski, and in these wet conditions you need to wick all the humidity off the ski as fast as possible, because clearly a film of fluid under the ski slows the ski down. You need to wick it away.
Christoph Lagler, who's been in action in Kazakhstan in the under-23 World Championships. 15-kilometer freestyle race there, finished outside the top 50. Again, feast points of 197 would suggest that he's got a little bit of work to do here.
Well, they want to be around 140 points to guarantee their qualification. Backmunk still leading. I'm not sure he's going to. Yes, he probably will still be leading to this point.
Now he's got a little bit of work to do here, because he's going to have to weave his way through a bit of traffic here. Now he can shout and they should give way, but one or two of these, well, he's done that well actually.
He's improving. Remember in Val di Fiemme we saw him, he was one of the slowest in the qualifying race, but a much improved athlete now.
But look at that, 6.4 seconds down. He was 1.8 up on Lang.
Well, you alluded to the fact that he went out of the stadium like a rocket.
Yeah.
And I think he may suffer for that later.
Yeah, it is about managing your energy over the journey, but that was slightly ominous to lose that amount, because effectively what he's done is he's lost 8 seconds between 1.3 and 2.8 kilometers.
Big loss, so he's going through a fatigue period right now.
And once again, here you see the athletes signing onto a board which essentially indicates their compliance with the World Anti-Doping Association's rules and regulations. In other words, to race clean.
Well, I think it's a great thing to put your signature to that, to state that you are, and let's hope that everybody is. Imre Tagshira, another ex-biathlete and cross-country skier, and it's a good time. He's setting a decent time up to 2.8.
Yeah, he's lost a couple of seconds to the leaders, though. New leader up the first 1,300 meters. This is Biam Bardor from Mongolia. That's Biam Bardor bold, 4:25.2. But Langer at the moment is the fastest through checkpoint or timing point number 3, which is half distance, 12:45. Dubalari in second place. Bokanchia of Moldova, 55 seconds off in third.
You could see Torsten Langer closest to us. This is a climb. He started at 18 kilometers per hour, then 12, then now down to about 9 as we come up Mörderbacken, as it's called, or Killer Hill. And they've got a mini Killer Hill as well, and it's a severe climb, about 23 degrees as you go up this climb.
But it's not only the angle, it's also the length of the climb.
It's crazy. It's a severe. I was round there this morning, and it's but this great rhythm here that Torsten Langer has. 40 seconds up on Dubalari.
Yeah, that's another 8 seconds he's taken out of Dubalari in the last 1,300 meters. So you can look at it two ways. You can say that Dubalari is fading or Torsten is gaining. It's probably a bit of both, actually.
It is, and I think Torsten is just keeping steady. He didn't start too aggressively. He's keeping strong and steady, and that's how you need to pace the 10-kilometer. Shinovic 8 seconds behind. That's a comfortable start.
Now, Latvians are to be definitely respected because they've got really improving form. And this is Raivo Kivlentnieks, and he was in the national championships a year ago in Otepää, actually in the Estonian national championships. Finished just outside the top 20 there. He's got a feast point ranking in that race of 127. So that suggests his youth and performance to date gives him a chance today.
Very much, and that's a good indicator. The FIS points are a very accurate indicator of what these athletes will achieve today.
All the way from Argentina, Carlos Lanes, So you get this real field of the world coming together in a sport which is absolutely associated with this part of the world. But, you know, Argentina, fantastic snow conditions, particularly for Alpine, where many years ago the World Cup would go down to Argentina during the summer to race there. And there you can see Bold now coming up to challenge the time of Torsten Langer, 8:37.8. Now, he was 17 seconds to the good. In fact, 18 seconds to the good over Langer. He's now 19.5. So he's managed to maintain, and his rhythm looks pretty good, and he's steady.
He's very steady. It's an amazingly a team that's improving very, very quickly. Are the Mongolians? 2 years ago, they were really not at. They were at the races, but not really competitive. Today, 2 years later, very competitive.
There you can see one or two of the red jackets. That means you can recognise the volunteers, and there are, goodness, I actually don't know the number at the moment.
Well, I've heard 1,400, I've heard 1,600, but certainly lots of them. Look at the clock slowing down in terms of speed, and this is all done by the GPS system. As soon as you come into the base of this climb, it's slower and slower. You don't quite get a feel of this hill from this angle.
Yeah, this is the beginning really of Moerdebakken, but it's if you'll excuse the pun, it can really be a backbreaker on the last rotation.
You need to leave something for this. The only upside about this hill is that for every climb you have to drop back down, and you get a good recovery after this major climb.
I must say, Torsten Langer having a pretty decent race when you consider, you know, his experience, but, you know, inevitably you would expect in the years to be catching up on him a little bit, and some of the younger men, but he's actually set a really good target, and everybody at the moment is living off his splits.
Yeah, I think his time is brilliant, and he seems to be plodding on at that same good rate.
So Dubellari for Moldova, first home to be the man in the clubhouse, to sit in the chair for some seconds at least.
And I think we suggested if he got around 27, then his pacing was actually good. I know he started very strong early on, but that's not a bad time. He's delighted. Well done. Difficult going first, I think, David. You're not getting much information on that first lap of 5Ks.
No, you've got to set your pace, and it's almost like having a metronomic clock inside you to actually feed the information about your rhythm and actually understanding what your body is saying to you in terms of your own messages, because it's easy to get a bit lazy, but you have to keep pushing yourself and keep winding yourself up if you want to get a time like that.
You do Lagler, what was that, some 19 seconds off Langer?
Lagler, yeah. He was 18 off and then 19 off the last couple of times. So Apostolos Angelis for Greece.
He did well recently in the World Under-23 Championships in Almaty, and that was interesting courses over there and at altitude, 1,600 meters, and that will do him a lot of good, racing for 10 days over there and then coming over here 10, 12 days later. It really does lift your form competing at those altitudes. Yeah,
he competed actually in the 15 kilometres in Östersund over the past weekend in the World Cup, finished 87th, feast points of 148, so what that says is not that far away, but a bit to find.
A little bit to find. Batmunk still working so hard, and into the base of Murder Hill, and he's carrying more pace, much faster than Torsten Langer at that stage, in terms of his moving pace.
This really tells you how hard it is, particularly when you see 5.8, 6.6 kilometres per hour, and you can see the Mongolian in the blue and white race suit coming up here. 6.3 kilometres. We'll get a little time check on his progress here.
It's close to Torsten Langer's time, 11.9. Can he find? There's his coach running alongside, telling him to get a move on.
Yeah, I've got him that he actually lost about a second or so, but maybe that was just a bad moment and he's picked it up again.
He certainly attacked the base of Murder Hill much faster than Torsten did, so he'll pull a little time back. Now these are some good names coming up, Lithuanians.
Teixeira now at 6.3 kilometres. Sorry, at 5 kilometres. He was actually 8.3 seconds off Langer. So again, another man who's got to get to the top of this hill.
43-year-old now. He was a biathlete for some 8-10 years, as well as doing cross-country world championships, and he's done Olympic Games as well in biathlon, and he would do the cross-country races as well.
Yeah, you could just see that snow there, like sugary, just making it just that little bit harder, and that's because of the warm temperature.
It is, and you've got this suction now. We mentioned earlier the wicking away of the humidity under your ski, but it's still very slow conditions. It's what, +3 air temperature,
and it could be warmer tomorrow, Mike. So what might that mean for our classic sprinters?
That's a tough job for the classic sprinters, waxing technicians. It will be a clister, which is a very grippy wax, and you put that it's about 30 centimeters long, 20 to 30, in the waxing pocket, as it's called. And the classic skis, you've got this rise under your foot. When you compress that onto the snow, that's your grip. Torsten still attacking the final climbs.
Meanwhile, Roberts Slotins of Latvia has gone faster than anybody now up the first 1,300 meters. He's 2.2 seconds ahead of the Mongolian Bold. And also in there, Sayed Sattar Said of Iran, 7.2 kilometers to the good. And in the women's race, of course, we had the first women's female racers as Langer comes home to set a new target and eclipses Dubellari quite comfortably there, but will that be good enough? But look at the depth of the snow, how it's softened up there.
So wet, and you know, there could well have been a little advantage going early on in the race like Torsten Langer has. It is getting wetter. I think that's a good job, good effort there from Torsten. Will he qualify? I think it'll be quite close. His time is good.
It's going to be interesting, the track preparation. If you weren't with us for the women's race, it's Thomas Wassberg, the legendary Swede who won multi-Olympic and World Championship gold medals, now at the age, I think, of 58, and he's in charge of the grooming of all the trails here, the rat tracks which go out at night at 10 o'clock to prepare the tracks for the following day. Now this is Bold being challenged here by yet another of the Latvians.
It's competitive. I know it's only 2.8 kilometers. There's still a long way to go, but that's a good rhythm. Carrying decent speed around the descent, the right-hander there. You get a little recovery after that section. Not much, maybe 12, 15 seconds. Kashinovic. It's another good time. Needs to keep the momentum. 6.3 kilometers coming up. Batmunk there still second place. Torsten Langer, we saw him finish setting the Pathfinder, the early pace. Kashinovic plus 16.
I mentioned Slotins, who was also recently in those Balkan Cup races in Serbia, and this man was 9th over the 10-kilometer freestyle and 4th over 5 kilometers. Feast points 176, 177. So again, in with some sort of a chance, and they're emphasizing going ahead of the Mongolian.
Good call. That's a decent time. And the thing about Slotins, he's comfortable. A little look back there. He's not killing himself at this moment, and he's just saving energy for the most important second rotation.
So as you see the 2.8 kilometer check times, let me tell you that not only Robert Slotins is now the real pacemaker, but Stanimir Belomazhev of Bulgaria up the first 1,300 meters within 1.5 seconds and a second ahead of Boll, just to give you an idea. So he's a man who also we need to keep an eye on, not least because he actually raced the Scandinavian Cup race in Lillehammer. That was December, and he did finish 91st, but he got feast points of 108 there.
That's good, feast points. Torsten Lange just happily sitting in the champion's chair. He'd be hoping so much that he can remain in that chair throughout the whole race, but I don't think that's going to happen. But he's still got a strong chance of a top 10.
Yeah, just for those of you at home, just to give you a quick idea of what's happening in the clubhouse there, Torsten Lange in 25.53.3 leads the way from Liviu Dubalari of Moldova, 1:11.2 the gap back to him. Christian Bocancia is the second best Moldovan. He's 2:39.5 off the pace in third place. Jonathan Jesus Fernandez of Chile leads a trio of Chileans in 4th, 5th and 6th places, so quite a competition amongst them. And then the Moldovan Svetoslav Malutin, who's in 7th place. Bourguignon, Brazil, in 8th. Chelavisky of Kyrgyzstan currently in 9th place.
Pretty good. Well, Bad Monk has set a lot of the early pace ahead of Torsten Lange at the 6.3 marker, and he's attacking every millimetre to the finish.
So, as you say, coming in to finish his race and just seeing how he's been going, but this is pretty good. He was 21 seconds down on Lange at 7.8 kilometres, and, well, Lange had the better finish, clearly.
He did. I'm just wondering if Bad Monk had a fall. There's some technical fast corners on the descent from that high point.
Now, here's the man I was just mentioning. He was just a second behind Slotins at 1.3 kilometres. So this is really interesting. Stanimir, the Bulgarian, wearing 63. You can see him. Look at the difference in pace here.
A huge drive and power through his arms, and this is a great time from the Bulgarian.
So he is now the race leader. Tagshera 44 seconds behind the leader of the race, Slotins, at the moment, and just looking at him, he was 8 seconds down at the last check time that we had, and 27 now behind Lange. So again, he's leaked time in the second rotation.
He has Hulgaard looking very good, the Dane, 64, there he is, efficient. You feel that he's got a lot more to give, David, and I think he's probably pacing this very nicely. 7.7 behind.
He's lost a couple of seconds between 1300 and 2.8 seconds, but he wouldn't be the first athlete to do that. If you can then make an impression up Murderbakken, then you can easily get time back there.
You can,
When I say easily, you have to work for it, but it's possible.
It is possible, and I thought you just felt that Hulgaard was pacing it nicely there within himself.
Now, here's a man who's lost up. Plakalovic there. Again, he was only 3.5 seconds behind Slotins, but look at him coming up now at 2.8 kilometres. Slotins yet to get here. But there he is in that Bosnian-Herzegovinian blue and yellow.
There he is.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. Now, he is the fastest man running.
Good skiing, without a doubt. Worked well over the crest of this long and gradual rise. Zin. Cameras were focusing on Zin at the start, but he's off the pace.
And the one thing I want to really point out about Mladen Plakalovic is the fact that he was racing last weekend in that Serbian Balkan Cup races, the Saturday 5 kilometre free, the Sunday 10 kilometre free. He won both of those races, and feast points on the 10 kilometre 95.62, on the 5 kilometre 101.87.
Not bad at all.
That really does highlight his chance to qualify for next week.
It does. Zin there, we saw him in 6th place. Now there's a number of faster racers behind him, certainly 4 that are faster, so he needs to improve his pace if he wants to qualify through to the next races. Top 10 only going through today. Nice flowing stride there from Konya, but 12 seconds off the pace, 5th position at the moment. The advantage going this late is that he will be given all those split times, and he'll realise he'll have to pick the pace up if he wants to qualify.
Just something we didn't manage to highlight, I think, and it was worthy of that. Samaneh Bayrami Bahar of Iran in the women's race. She actually finished 24th place and had won all 9 races this season in Iran. The first ever cross-country skier in the women's division who actually has come out of the capital city of Tehran of 8 million inhabitants. And her teammate in that was her runner-up and the first female athletes to compete, and so I think that's a really creditable performance and really good to see a country like Iran, which does have snow, obviously, and she was asked if she was a star and she said, no, I don't think so, not with the likes, but I'm really happy to be here. And Torsten Langer, as you suggested, Mike, still getting the better of the majority. I don't think he's going to win this at the end of the day, but being in the top 10 now is looking more and more realistic.
It is, and it's Torsten's experience maybe which helped him, but Bold had been knocking Langer's time, undercutting it, as he is going to here, I think. He's got 48 seconds from this, the middle part of the bridge, to the finish line. In fact, he's lost pace, but probably will still take the lead. And Torsten is looking on, a little anxious.
Yeah, and Bold, I agree with you there, is going to take the advantage here. I'm just having a look at Bold in relation. He was 20 seconds better at 7.8 kilometres.
He's lost a little. Certainly, that shows Langer's pacing was good. Oh, 15 seconds. Torsten loses his seat.
Clubhouse now. It is Biambadori Bold of Mongolia, 25:38.2. Torsten Langer second for Belgium, plus 15 seconds. Imre Tagscherer for Hungary, 35 off the lead. Batmunk of Mongolia, 49 off the lead. In 5th place, Peshkinovic of Serbia, 68 seconds. Those are the top 5 at the moment, but there are people out there who are going to play a part. This is one man who could as well. I've got him at the 5 kilometre points, Said, and I've got him 30 seconds off Belomatsev and Plakolovic of Bulgaria, Bosnia Herzegovina. That's the way to finish the race, you know, really empty yourself.
Every morsel of energy expended towards the line. Ruma, plus 40. I'm not sure that's going to last the top 10. It will be close.
Well, he's ahead of the Mongolian Batmunk. He's gone into 4th place overall. So that's a positive in his case. Paipals of Latvia. I had him right in the early parts of the race, behind Slotin and Belomatsev. He was about 10 seconds down through the first 1,300 metres, but then by 2.8 he'd actually drifted to 26 seconds off the pace.
He looked tired there, and he was doing the long reach glide instead of the more efficient, faster tempo, but you need to be alive and kicking for that.
Spins round. And that's the only difference between here and Holmenkollen. When you come off at Holmenkollen, of course, you come off and then you have that roller that drops you down, which I think is fantastic because it gives you that extra kicker of pace.
There's going to be some amazing finishes here. Can you imagine the mass starts charging up for this line? We're going to have 5, 6, maybe 10 people going for the line. And it's all about the best line or the best exit from that corner down the bottom, really, which dictates the outcome.
So 69 on the start list, and here's Belomatsev now. He was 2.8 ahead of Plakolovic at the 5 kilometre point. I'll try and pick that up a little bit more for you. Coming to 6.3. And Slotins there, you can see the leading time ahead of Saeed of Iran.
Well, you just feel that this is going to be a new time from Belomashev. And the university had 2 years ago in Val d'Ifrane, 36th in the 10k free, which is very competitive. I think under 1 minute 40 behind the winner.
Yeah, what was really good was I liked the rhythm of his skiing, and then suddenly as he came to the base of Motor Hill, it was interesting to see him change the gear, and I thought that was very good. Now he just needs to skip past the man in front of him, and he's actually working really well.
But look, he had the advantage here in cross-country ski racing. You can shout, you can ask the athlete ahead of you if he's slower than you to move. He's gone the wrong way around. He's lost 2 seconds. He could have shouted, he could have had the athlete ahead of him move.
30 seconds to the good, and just trying to get, he was only 23 seconds at half distance ahead of Slotins, so in relation to Robert Slotins, that's a gain of 7 seconds in the last 1300.
He's got momentum, even though he went the long way round. He's well, setting the strong pace.
Krugard, we haven't seen him for a while, but he was also at the same point going for 6.3, and I had him 18 seconds behind Belomashev and Plakalovic.
He has done World Cup in the past.
I just want to pick out also Adam Konya, number 68, now third fastest through the half distance. We haven't really seen him in the race, but he's been at the under-23 Worlds in Almaty in Kazakhstan, and picked up there in the 15 free 116.9 piece points. So that also puts him into a position of qualifying in the top 10.
This is good racing. He changed gear there into the skate 2, still climbing though.
Quite interested by the Bosnian team here, because there's a clear sign of, I'm just trying to think of the word here, but achievement, improvement, moving forward.
No, very much. The techniques have been worked on. When we saw them 2 years ago, they're a completely different team now, and a competitive team. Well, second place, 9.9 behind. Zinn seems to have picked up his pace towards the end of his race in comparison to Bold, 31.8 now. It's a good last third of the race he's put in. I can barely stand. He's given everything. That's Bold, very happy. 25.38, it's a decent time. I think if Marcus Hellner and the likes raced today, there'd be certainly 2 minutes faster than that, maybe 2.5, 3 minutes. Again, you can ask the athlete ahead of you to move by shouting track, but opting the long way around. Konya from Hungary. Good rhythm though. Hips are staying level, and a choppy technique.
Interesting Konya here, because he's another man who I had reasonably in touch here.
Good technique from Konya. Well, he's not going to set the fastest time, but he's going to be close, what, within 22nd of Bold's lead time.
So just looking at the situation now, it's beginning to clarify itself who's going to make this through to the top 10 here. Kivlenieks of Latvia. So 14 seconds, but into second place. So the situation in the clubhouse now really beginning to change, because there are not too many out on the course. It's Bold at the moment of Mongolia, from Kivlenieks of Latvia. Torsten Langer still really good in third place, 15 seconds off the lead. Jin of China, Teixeira of Hungary, and Slotins coming in. Now surely Slotins must go into the top 10. In fact, he goes into the lead, but he is still vulnerable. Belomeshev and Plakalovic and possibly Adam Konya, all big dangers to him. But he's going to surely qualify to go into next week's competition. And Batmonk of Mongolia, if you remember, he was the guy that started, if you excuse the pun, like a bat out of hell. He's at the moment in 10th place, would you believe?
Oh, he worked so hard, and maybe his enthusiasm was the undoing. His early pace was quite phenomenal, then he faded later.
This is good. Look at the finish here. Really putting in, skating hard, determining, wanting, hungry. Let me get into the top 10. Look at this, challenging for second place, and he gets it, and that is going to be good enough to give Iran representation in next week's race.
So impressed, and Saeed kept his technique. He's got good pacing. All his technique is efficient and good. Well, what a fantastic day for him.
And there is a face of happiness. Well done to him. Pipals.
Good long stride. He doesn't look that fast, but his pure strength is making him cover the distance well. Surely this is good enough for a top 10. Yes, it will be.
Well, he was 5 or 6 seconds down on Saeed the last time we had a little check on him. And now you can see he's going to run into the plus, going for second place now. And he's turned it around, hasn't he? He's skied much better in the second loop. And this is torture for those men in 8th, 9th, 10th places at the moment.
Anxious moments, nothing they can do about it.
Robert Slotin still leading from Yanis Pipels. The two Latvians, first and second. Saeed of Iran in 3rd place. And then into 6th place, just pushing Langer down of Belgium into 7th. That was Dejanov of Bulgaria. Jin is down to 8th. Tag Sheridan 9th. Atez of Turkey in 10th place. 1:23 seconds. 1 minute 23 separating the top 10. Enjoy your moment there, Roberts, because you're not going to be there too long, I'm afraid.
Well, and Torsten Langer is looking less likely to make it. He's still in 7th place. Zinn is looking on thin ice in 8th place, and Tag Shearer 1:22 behind in 9th place.
Now this could be just having a look at him there. How long is it going to take Angelis to get to the finish line here? And he needs to be pretty well inside the minute to push himself into the top 10.
I think he's safe. Well, it's about from the end of this long straight, it's about 19 to 20 seconds.
That's a good finish. That is a really good finish.
Angelis, well, it's definitely safe there in 4th at the moment, but he'll probably drop a couple of places. Wow, this is a great time from the Bulgarian.
Yeah, so Belomeshev, he was leading at 6.3 and 7.8. And you can see this is a huge bite out of Slotin's time. And Bulgaria take the advantage there by the best part of a minute. And now Jin is lurking in 10th place. One more faster and he'll be out of the top 10. Torsten Langer in 9th place, clinging on also. Not quite by his fingernails, but a large toenail at the moment for hoping to make next week's race.
In a sense, Torsten was a little unlucky with such an early start number of 14. He didn't have any of the big names at the back of this field.
I think there are there are a few people out there. Plakalovic is one of them, and Konya is another. Hulgaard of Denmark is yet a third, and Hulgaard should be coming home any moment now because he wears bib 64. And Hulgaard was 40 seconds behind Belomeshev, which gives him some chance of getting home. He's just... No, that's... Where is he?
60 just coming across the line there.
64 now in the finish straight here. Now, he needs to be inside a minute, or at least a minute 23, which he's going to do. And so Thomas Langer is about to be pushed out of the top 10. Hugard, Denmark, good run there. 47 seconds over. Slotin's down to third. Latvians third and fourth now. Dejanov of Bulgaria is in the danger zone. He's in 10th place.
Oh, and Torsten Langer, he's only been knocked down by 0.5 of a second. But maybe some more will get under that time.
Now look at this. Plakalovic was behind Belomeshev at the 7.8 kilometers and 16.6. So he's lost 3 seconds almost in the last 2.2 kilometers.
Well, again, it's about managing the time. But you mentioned earlier Bosnia-Herzegovina improving so much in the cross-country races. Look at that. You can't give more.
Now I'm still waiting for the likes of Konya, Hungarian, wearing bib number 68, because he was only 30 seconds off the lead. It's Belomeshev of Bulgaria who's in the lead. We're looking for 68, and here is Adam Konya coming up and then goes to the right and galloping up here. He knows that every second counts, increasing the speed. 23 kilometers, comes down here, needs a nice turn, let the skis run out and then move into that finish phase. Not too bad there. I've seen worse on that corner today, and that was pretty good. And you can see here that Konya really challenging, and he is going to push out of the top 10. Šolja of Lithuania as he comes to the line. Konya, and that's a decent run into third place. But the day has been won by Stanimir Belomeshev of Bulgaria in 23:56.8, the only man to break 24 minutes. Plakalovic of Bosnia-Herzegovina second, Adam Konya of Hungary third, Hugard of Denmark fourth, Slotins of Latvia fifth, Smirkovic of Serbia in sixth place, Paipals of Latvia seventh, Said of Iran eighth, Hadzisakovic of Serbia in ninth place. Apologies if I haven't pronounced that quite correctly. And in 10th place it's Apostolos Angelis of Greece. What a real mixture of countries there. And that unofficially is your top 10, and those are the top 10 spread by 1 minute 30 who are going to go into the competition next week. And Lukas Jakalunis of Lithuania, I had him 1 minute and 15 out. Well, I'm just having a look at this now, Mike. Well, 1 minute and 15 because Angelis is 1:30 off. It's all depending on this finish. It might not be quite over at the bottom of the table here. Come on, you really need to get the zest on here. 1:19, you've got to be inside 1:30.9. 23, 24, 25, come on, push it out. 28, 29, oh, he's going to miss out. His teammates shouting at him, but he hasn't quite made it.
Well, when I looked at this race, I thought this man would make it into the top 10. Well, 3 seconds off it. What a disappointment for him. Just under 3 seconds.
For me, there was just a moment of hesitation at the top of the straight going over the bridge. I'm sure he was giving absolutely everything, Mike, but he is going to be truly sick of missing out so narrowly. But there, wearing bib number 63, Stanimir Belomeshev is your winner of the qualification, and he definitely goes through to the 15-kilometer final. And now we just have to wait for the Feast Point rankings to see how many have got inside the required threshold of, I think it's 140, isn't it?
140 for the men, that's it. 140 FIS points.
There are your men, there are your countries, there are your times. The top 10 make it, and there are certainly the next 5 are going to be saying, oh, if only.
Oh, such a pity. Torsten Langer, there's 16th. We thought he might make it, but a lot of the big names starting later in the race. And an advantage, without a doubt. Sad for me, for Jakalunas, he was up on Angelis by some 12-14 seconds at the second last checkpoint, and maybe he backed off just a little, but he's 3 seconds outside.
So the man who's won the day was a big outsider in the Scandinavian Cup race in Lillehammer back in the early part of December last year, over 15 kilometers, but clearly tuned up today, and the pace of the race that he produced, absolutely spot on and a deserved winner by 16 seconds. And there's a great shot of the stadium. So Adam Konya of Hungary in third place. There's a nice congratulatory podium awaiting them. Just a reminder though, Thursday, medal day, classic sprint for men and women. Marit Bjørgen, is it going to be another gold for her? Ski jumping, the women's qualifying on the normal hill. Takanashi, Daniela Irachko-Schultz, or could it be Sarah Hendrickson of America, looking to defend the title she won in 2013? But they qualify tomorrow, they race on Friday, or they jump, I should say, on Friday. Well, Mike, really good little competition that.
It was a great competition. 23.56 the winning time. You know, that is a competitive time, and very interesting to see how these guys will get on in the open races later on in these World Championships.
And let's hope the weather forecasters aren't too right tomorrow, and we might get a bit of blue sky. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. From Mike Dixon and myself, Debbie Goldstrom, for the first time in the 10-day journey. Bye-bye from Falun.